supplies of Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
But defensively, that's what matters. And I think that's what you have to learn on this road trip, that defense is what's going to keep you in the game and give you a chance to win. And that's all you want at the end of the day. So if you're taking steps defensively, like we did tonight, then you end up losing by 10 plus points to the Timberwolves. No disrespect to them, give them credit, they played well, but that's unacceptable.
That was Tristan Thompson, who's played on championship teams. He knows what a championship team looks like. But if you missed the first part of that rant, it's all over Twitter. It has F-bombs and stuff, and so we only played part of that clip. But he basically said, yeah, we should have won all 4 games on this road trip because all 4 of these teams aren't trying to win. I mean, the Timberwolves, got some guys, but that was amazing. Doogie is here. Boys, it is Reckless Speculation Thursday to all who celebrate.
Reckless Speculation.
How are we feeling today? Judd, what's going on? Which bobblehead do you have there?
Rodney Klein Carew, one of 2, because I've also got a Carew 1970s road jersey Twins one.
Wow,
but I'm going with the home 1970s look. But let me just say this about that Wolves game, because I went last night. The first half set basketball back probably 65 years. That is one of the most inept. I mean, if I could shoot at all, I would say I can shoot better than the Wolves or Kings, but I can't shoot, so I'm not.
Yeah, there's video evidence of you shooting.
Right. But I'm telling you right now, the first half of, if you like basketball after the first half last night, you love basketball. You don't just like basketball, you love basketball.
But then Dukes Ant looked around the room after, an hour and a half, and he's like, all right, this is stupid. I'm just gonna take the game over now in the final 12 minutes. And he made a reference to Finchy at halftime.
Finchy.
We don't want Finchy getting out of character and yelling at us, so I figured I had to do something. So what'd you make of that last night?
Well, I mean, how many free throws did he attempt last night? I still want to see him take it to the hoop more, but when the three-point shot is going, by the way, happy Reckless Speculation Thursday. When his three-point shot is going, fine. And yeah, I mean, he was brilliant in the fourth quarter, carried them to victory. As far as Tristan Thompson goes, he's not wrong. He is wrong about his own team because Sacramento, in many ways, is a dumpster fire. But
yeah, it's like, what team do you play for, buddy?
OKC, Detroit. In fact, those 2 aforementioned franchises. I was talking to somebody in one of those front offices the other day. He fully admitted, we're okay winning 2021 games. He goes, have you seen the top of next summer's draft, which includes Chet Holmgren, Twin Cities native? But you think about the young man, Ben Charo at Duke, some other guys. It is a really good draft to have another really high pick. So Detroit, Oklahoma City, Houston, those franchises have no problem, for lack of a better term, tanking so they can end up with, what they hope is a top 5 pick next June.
Yeah.
So, Dukes, what is the opportunity here, and what do you think the odds are that Sachin Gupta, 1, has the power, and 2, has the ability to do some tweaking of this roster? Because we've discussed this before, but it's just quite clear. Like, they definitely have some parts. They've got players I like, okay? Some players. But it's just crystal clear in watching this team consistently that the actual construction is not near complete yet. Like and we've talked about this, but like with a Pobo who doesn't have the Pobo title, and with the opportunities that we don't know, like who's okaying what. I mean, this team needs a power forward so badly that, and I'm not saying old school, you're not going to get McHale in McHale's prime, but I'm just saying somebody to sort of impose their will with the right height and weight, and they lack that almost completely. So what do you think the odds are that this team either looks to make that trade? And if they don't, I just think we're going to see a lot of the same things, which is up and down inconsistency. And if a guy gets hot, that's great. But if he doesn't, it's really hard to consistently compete with the current construction of what they're trying to do lineup wise.
Sachin Gupta has leeway. He has permission to make moves. He has been active. He has been on the phone. He has run into executives in person. He was at Madison Square Garden last week, scouting some of those college kids. Inevitably, you run into other executives. names come up. Heck, if Sacramento keeps losing, you could probably pry Tristan Thompson out of Sacramento, although you consider his personal life history, Karl-Anthony Towns' current girlfriend. I'm not quite sure you want Tristan and Kat in the same locker room. That might be a little weird, but Tristan Thompson, the player, could actually help this roster. Sachin Gupta is well aware, Judd, that he has the smallest roster in the NBA, but teams are just not willing to do much right now. I think it'll change pretty quick. Like a different NBA executive was telling me the other day, Toronto, for example. I don't have specific names, but if you look at Toronto's roster, Toronto is looking to do some things sooner rather than later. Chris Boucher, Birch, they have some backup bigs that maybe could appeal to the Wolves. I don't necessarily know if there's a match, but that would be one team I would keep an eye on. I think Leon Rose in New York is looking to do some things. Heck, they lost at home last night to the Orlando Magic. That's another franchise, by the way. Plenty happy to have another top 5 type pick. So there are teams that are going to be willing to do some things. I still think Indiana is a fascinating situation. They lost to the Pistons the other night. Miles Turner is getting a lot of minutes. He's blocking a lot of shots, but he's not taking many shots. I just don't know what Rick Carlisle is trying to accomplish with Miles Turner. So I still think that's an intriguing name. I've told you guys for weeks that I know that there are Turner fans here in Minnesota. So those would be some of the franchises I would look at. But yeah, when you have Houston and OKC and, some others, Orlando, as I mentioned, any vets on those rosters, trust me, as we get closer to that February 10th trade deadline, those franchises will have no problem moving, guys.
Duke, I'm going to boil the conundrum down to one question for you here. And when I ask this question, I also think the Wolves are going to win potentially like 3 of the next 4 games, or maybe even go on a 4-game win streak. So
no, they should, right? Like San Antonio is still figuring things out. You better
Pelicans.
win tonight. Okay, Memphis toss-up game on Saturday, but you should win that game here. Then New Orleans on Monday. Phil, you better win that game.
Yep, you should be winning some games here. But my question is, why don't they win more games with Kat and D'Lo as the main superstar 1-2 punch?
Well, let's look at the most recent loss, Monday to Phoenix. Kat, incredibly hot, even hot early fourth quarter. How many times did he touch the ball final 2.5 minutes? He did take a shot with like 3:40-ish left on the clock.
He made a 3 with 3.5 left. He made a 3, and then
he was clearly the best player on the court. Like, don't you need to get the best player the ball? Now, for the most
D'Lo
part,
time. That's D'Lo time.
You know what, though, Phil? I wasn't bothered. Outside of one, I wasn't overly bothered by Russell's shot selection. Like, I thought a lot of those looks were fine looks. Now, he told us yesterday that he doesn't like the new ball. So if he doesn't like the new ball, if he's still trying to figure out the grip of the new ball,
don't shoot
then
7
don't shoot
times
as
in
often
the last
as you
3
do.
minutes.
Correct. Yeah, because you can't have it both ways. And it was a question that Dane Moore presented to him about the way the officials are officiating the game differently. And he spun it. It wasn't a question about the ball. He said his problem is, forget the officials. He goes, my problem is with the ball. And then there were a couple follow-up questions. So D'Angelo went on a nice little rant about the ball. So, yeah, I'm with you. If you're still figuring out the grip of this new basketball, don't shoot the ball so often. But I'm just telling you, looks-wise on Monday, I wasn't bothered by a lot of those looks. The one thing that man can do is make shots. He's not a playmaker, even though at times he suggests he's a playmaker. He's not a playmaker. He's not somebody that gets to the free throw line. So I guess from that standpoint, yeah, the officials question, it doesn't impact him like it does others because he's not one that gets to the free throw line to begin with. Defensively, he's a minus player. The one thing he can do is make shots. So I don't have a problem with a lot of those shots. But it's oftentimes a conundrum like that, Phil, where they can't figure out, who to get the ball to. It's a lot of hero ball. It's a lot of one pass, then shoot. They've had a lot of meltdowns in fourth quarters. You think about the Orlando fourth quarter. There are other examples, but that's the one that comes first to mind. So, it's any number of different reasons. The weird thing is, Phil, this team is excellent defensively. They deserve all sorts of credit for how well they are defending. But Chris Finch, brilliant offensive mind. I still believe he is a brilliant offensive mind. But where is that brilliance? Offensively, they are one of the 5 worst teams in the NBA.
Okay, so fire the sounder, because this brings up a question that I actually texted to Phil yesterday.
Reckless speculation.
I would like both of you to go back and forth on what Dukes just broached, because, as much as this pains me to say, because Finchie's my age, I love him. I mean, he looks 65 and I look 52. But that being said, what's the timetable here to decide what Dukes just said, which is, because we keep saying, like, we can say all we want, guy's an offensive genius. What's the timetable to decide that? And how good of coach do we think, I should say, how good of head coach do we think Finchie is?
You want to go first, Phil? Or you want me to go first?
You go first. Go ahead.
I think he's a good coach, Judd. I do. I think, look at last year. This is a guy that has deserved this opportunity for a really long time. Yeah, the process stunk. Having Ryan Saunders get on that jet to fly to New York, that stunk. But the end result, giving Chris Finch a chance to be a head coach, a lot of people in the league will tell you he was very deserving. And I'm telling you, we saw some of that offensive brilliance. The final, 16, 18 games last year. They finished the final 16 games last year with a winning record. So I am willing to give him, a much longer leash. But so far, this sample size of, 14, 15 games, it has been atrocious. But it's also a roster with so many warts that I would love to see Chris with a roster that at least has a little bit more size, with a four-man that can do a little bit more than what Jared Vanderbilt can do. Now, that being said, Vanderbilt, Energizer Bunny, right? I mean, the energy is contagious in many ways. I think Jared Vanderbilt is a rotation guy in the NBA. He deserves minutes, but he's not a starter. So until the roster is fixed for Chris, I don't want to have any final opinion on him, write his Timberwolves coaching obituary, anything like that, because I'm not quite sure Eric Spoelstra, who to me is the best coach in the NBA, I'm not convinced if Eric Spoelstra was here right now that this team would have 4 or 5 more wins.
Yeah, that's where here's my thought on it. So Cat and D'Lo in their careers combined, 11, 12 seasons combined, they are 160 games below 500 in their NBA careers. Both of them have had one decent season. D'Lo with that Nets team 3 years ago, that they finished 42-40 and snuck into the playoffs and then got waxed by the Sixers in the first round. And then they traded everyone for Kyrie and Kevin Durant.
They did, Phil, but remember, they were so bad early on. He does deserve credit, as does, Joe Harris, some others with the Nets at the time, for getting out of that hole, because they could have curled up in the fetal position very easily.
I'm not saying he's Rashad McCants. I'm just saying, he hasn't carried teams and mediocre rosters to, if there's a mediocre roster, it usually sinks with or without D'Lo, is what I'm saying. And the same thing for Cat. So Cat's one big season, and I love Cat. He's one of the best offensive players in the NBA, but there's something missing from a leadership standpoint. And the one winning season for him was with Jimmy Butler, 3 or 4 years ago. And again, they're losing games again this year. They're losing to the Magic. They're losing to the Pelicans. Have 2 wins, one against the Timberwolves. So how much of it is Chris Finch is coming in here and he's being asked to make winners out of a group and 2 superstars that have never really been winners before? And how much of it is maybe Finch is in a little bit over his head? I mean, ultimately, the job is Karl-Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, and then peripheral pieces that might not be perfect. And you have to make it a winning collection somehow. And I'm with you. I would be curious to see a better roster, for one, but I would also be curious to see, all right, if you took the 3 or 4 best coaches in the NBA, what could they get out of Cat and D'Lo? Or are those guys just kind of is it, whether it's partially their fault or partially just the environments that they've been bouncing around in, are they just too far gone in their mid-20s now? They've been in the league too long. They've seen too much losing basketball. Dukes, the fourth quarter against the Suns, such an amazing contrast, right? The Suns know exactly who they are in the fourth quarter. It's elbow jumpers from Chris Paul. It's elbow jumpers from Devin Booker. It's pick and roll. It's DeAndre Ayton. They know exactly what they're going to do to you, and you know what they're going to do, and you still can't stop it. The Wolves don't even know where to start when they're trying to protect a fourth quarter lead. They don't know if Ant should be driving or if D'Lo should be shooting or if Cat should get the ball. They don't know who they are after 6 or 7 years in the NBA, and I don't care that they haven't played together. If you don't know, if you're Cat and D'Lo, and you don't know how to win a game in the fourth quarter at this point in your careers, I'm worried that they're sort of too far gone. So that's my spiel.
Well, and that's a good rant, Phil. I don't disagree with what you just said. I mean, Monday was a reminder that Chris Paul is one of the greatest players, certainly greatest point guards of all time, that he is that much of a difference maker. Monty Williams is an excellent coach. He's a guy the Wolves had interest in a number of years ago. In terms of Cat and D'Lo, here's what I can tell you, Phil. There are coaches around the league that would love to coach Cat, that they feel like there's more there, that they can unearth more, that with the right pieces around him, hey, bring Cat to me, and we'll get him at least close to the promised land, maybe not hoisting that NBA championship trophy, but hey, we can make a run in the playoffs with Cat on our roster. There are a number of teams that would love to trade for Karl-Anthony Towns. Are there a number of teams that would love to trade for D'Angelo Russell?
No.
Heck no. Maybe one or two. I'm not suggesting like the number is 0, but it's a very small number. Like I'm telling you, on one hand, like that's it. Like you're not getting beyond, the 5 fingers on one hand. You're just not. I'm sorry, Phil. I correspond with a lot of people in the league. I just don't hear a lot of positivity about D'Angelo Russell. That's the truth.
I think I think if you're planning on having a playoff team that can make a run and go deep and be in the Western Conference Finals, I think D'Lo is your 6th man, 23 minutes off the bench, scoring punch guy. Now,
and he can score. That's the one thing I'm telling you. I still think he is an elite shot maker. I really firmly believe that. He can do that. He could be a Vinnie Johnson way back in the day.
Jamal Crawford.
Yes, he can do that. He absolutely can do that. But, in terms of leading a franchise, initiating offense, all that, playing 38 minutes a night, you're probably right. It's doubtful it's going to happen on a winning team. Yeah, maybe 42-40, but he's not going to lead a team, to 50 or 55 wins, something like that. Now, in his defense, how many coaches has he been through? Heck, how many coaches has Karl-Anthony Towns been through? How many different teammates have these guys been through? There's been 0 continuity.
So, off that point, though, here's my question about last night, because both teams couldn't make shots. It was pathetic. Like, it was really hard to watch. And that's a game where I think if you have a star, like a superstar player like Cat, he says, screw this. I'm just going to go win this game. Like there's going to be no great fourth quarter comeback or rally because I'm going to end this game. And Karl proceeds to have, I believe, 6 shots from the field in both halves. Is that a Finch thing? Is that the old is Cousins checking down, or is he told to? That's the one thing I don't get, because like I was waiting and feeling last night like, Karl, just take the game. Like, just take this game by the throat. It's an awful game, and end it. And he got 6 shots per half, 12 shots total. So who do we think that's on? Because like that's what I want my definitive veteran star to do. I want him to take that game and say, I'm going to play a huge role in putting an end to this crap now. That didn't happen.
I'm going to get real quick before Doogie jumps in. I'm going to give you more context there too. So it's not just a last night problem. He's 3rd on the team in shot attempts behind Edwards and D'Angelo Russell, despite having one of the best effective field goal percentages, which takes into account the context of your shots and everything. He has one of the best effective field goal percentages in the NBA. He's one of the most efficient scorers in the NBA. Now, can he create his own shot like Anthony Edwards? No, not that he's incapable of creating his own offense, because he can drive to the hoop, but it is much more than just a last night problem to fix, for sure.
It is, and on last night, like, I'll give Cat credit. He saw Ant-Man getting hot there in the 4th, get the ball to the hot hand. That's why Monday is so maddening. Like on Monday, Cat was that hot hand. They had to find a way to get him touches those final 7-8 possessions. But I think Judd, I'm saying first half. He's got the green light. I'm telling you. Like, there was one opportunity. He beat a guy right block. There was a switch, smaller man on him. Ball goes to him. He turns toward the basket. He had a look, and he ends up kicking the ball to the corner. I don't know if you remember, Judd, that specific play. But I turned to Joe Schmidt in our office. We were watching on TV. You were at Target Center. I was watching on TV. I said, what is Cat doing there? That's a prime opportunity to get a shot up, a good shot up, and he's kicking the ball to the corner. I think it's more a Cat problem. That's not on Finch. Trust me. Finch has no problem if Cat takes 24 shots. If Cat takes 25 shots in tonight's game, Finch doesn't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, Dukes, let's because you got to get out and do your A job here for 5 Eyewitness News. So let's go Vikings here. Vikings Packers week. Vikings have had all sorts of injury and COVID issues. It sounds like Bradbury was back running with the ones yesterday. What else are you hearing about the Vikings as they lead up to their first game against the Packers?
Well, awaiting word. So Brian O'Neill, DJ Wanham, I am told, both tested positive for COVID yesterday morning. They retested sometime later, a couple hours later. Those test results were negative. So now we await word on the testing this morning. Hopefully, both test negative. They can use both on Sunday. Certainly their best offensive lineman, but even in DJ Wanham's case, like you think about Kenny Willekes, who I thought played well in Baltimore. He then tests positive for COVID. He is vaccinated, so he misses, though, the Chargers game. But now I'm told he has not produced 2 consecutive negative tests. So he feels fine. I'm told Kenny Willekes feels fine, but until you produce those 2 negative tests, you cannot rejoin the team. So it's entirely possible Kenny Willekes feeling fine doesn't play on Sunday. So then you're down to like new guy, old guy, but new guy, Yarbrough. Like you need DJ Wanham on Sunday. So that's what I'm awaiting word on. I just checked again, no word back. I'm sure the testing is done. We're just now in the process of awaiting results. Now, Brian and DJ may have those results, but I just don't have the results quite yet. But that's what I'm keeping an eye on this morning, the Brian O'Neill and DJ Wanham test results. Also, Mackenzie Alexander and Chris Herndon were listed as out of practice yesterday, non-injury related. I have a hunch of what's going on there, but until I get more definitive word, I don't want to say much. But we'll also keep an eye on Alexander and Herndon.
Smith is back on against the Packers, correct, at safety?
He is. And
Harrison
Judd,
Smith?
I mean, unvaccinated, but COVID didn't hit him. I mean, he's been fine. Like, it didn't beat him up.
Good.
It impacts people different ways. Dakota Dozier, vaccinated, ends up in the hospital. Thankfully, he's out of the hospital now. But it hits people different ways. Harrison Smith was fine the entire time, but being unvaccinated, he was forced to miss the 2 games. But yeah, he's back. He'll play on Sunday.
All right. Any other rapid fire scoops for us here, Dukes?
Well, I mean, the twin situation to me is so fascinating.
Oh God, don't get me started.
Phil,
I think
and I don't say this lightly, I think there's some split opinion on what to do with Buxton.
Dude,
that
then fire everyone who wants to trade him for 50 cents on the dollar.
There's some that say, yeah, he breaks down too much. Let's get a big return right now. I think there's others saying,
a big return. Yeah,
transformational talent. Let's give him well over $100 million guaranteed. There's no doubt in my mind that trading Buxton would be incredibly hard for Jim Pohlad. But I do think if Derek Falvey calls Jim and says, hey, the Yankees, the Dodgers, some other teams, maybe the Marlins even, hey, they're willing to give us this, and this package is too good to turn down. I don't think Jim is going to block any sort of trade. But I find the situation fascinating because I'm telling you, I don't sense that there's a universal opinion on what to do.
Hold on. Are you telling me that the owner wants to keep Buxton and the baseball ops people might be leaning towards trying to trade him? And then why doesn't Jim just for once in his life step in and say, we're signing him?
Well, I mean, Jim's not going to do that. I'm not saying that Jim is completely 100% anti a trade. But if you talk to Jim, I'm pretty positive he'll tell you, I want Byron Buxton here long term. But he is going to defer to his baseball folks. I mean, this isn't Jerry Jones. I mean, he's not going to get in the middle of it. He hired these guys for a reason. They have final say in the roster. But what I'm suggesting is I'm not convinced everybody in that organization, forget ownership, go down from there. I'm not convinced everybody in that organization is on the same page.
Dude.
I'm telling you, I get the sense some say, yeah, we need to keep this guy. And others are saying, yeah, let's get what we can. All these teams want him. All these teams approached us last week at the GM meetings, and Carl's bad. There's a lot of trade interest in Buck. Let's get this enormous return for him.
We've been pretty frontal, I think. We really haven't talked a lot of Twins since the trade deadline because listen, the NFL season was ramping up. The Wolves and the Wild were going to be interesting. And so we've probably only talked Twins on this show about 4 times since the trade deadline, aside from just some sprinklings here and there. But, I still don't think I don't think a big enough deal is being made out of just how pathetic the Twins have been in the playoffs for 20 years and in all of their moves last offseason. They whiffed on every single thing they did, literally everything from the relievers and the starters they brought in to trading Lamont Wade Jr., late night Lamont, to what wound up being the best team in baseball, the San Francisco Giants, for a reliever that they released in like May. And I don't know, I just kind of feel like, I don't want to start a media war here, but the Twins were they really got off without a lot of criticism, and maybe it was just apathy, but I don't know, man. I was so high on this front office a couple years ago when they built the most powerful home run hitting team in baseball history. And now it's like, if you trade Byron Buxton, you're literally going into a multi-year rebuild. That's where we've come in the last 2 years.
Now, I will say, re-signing Nelson Cruz, which turned into Joe Ryan and another promising young arm, I guess that was the one positive move. But yeah, you're right, Phil. I mean, heck, I'm still upset that they were foolish enough not to add Nick Anderson, my guy, to the 40-man roster a few years ago. They have swung and missed on a number of moves. Now, heck, they tried to sign Corey Kluber last winter. That would not have worked out. They tried to sign Kirby Yates. That would not have worked out. Heck, at one point, they had a conversation about Marcelo Zuna. That would not have worked out. That was more leverage to convince Nelson to re-sign. But yeah, like I saw a quote from Falvey in some story because, he held court with some reporters last week suggesting that they're still formulating their offseason plan. Here's an idea. Be like the Tigers. Be aggressive. Now, I'm told, actually, I tweeted that they were not in on Eduardo Rodriguez. I'm told his name came up internally, and there was at least one external conversation. But, they didn't make an offer for Eduardo Rodriguez. Go find a guy. The slowness of Major League Baseball free agency baffles me. Go identify a guy or two. Make what you consider a fair offer as opposed to trying to, get every deal to be a team-friendly, transaction. Go make a nice offer like the Tigers did with Eduardo Rodriguez. Go sign a guy right when free agency opens. And I just don't get why this front office can't think along those lines.
Yeah, amen. Amen. There he is, Darren Doogie Wolfson from the Scoop Podcast and 5 Eyewitness News. All right, we'll send you off so you can do your A job here. We'll talk to you next week, dude.
Okay, sounds good. Off the bottom with Ryan Suter. Judd, you're going to be at Target Center tonight? You're not going to the Wild game?
I'm going to the Wild game.
Wild game.
I'm not going to the Wolves game tonight against the Spurs.
Don't worry. I won't be there, but I'll be all in on the Wolves tonight. Back to back, baby.
Saturday, Memphis, though. The Grizzlies in town. All right.
That gets
you
excited.
See ya. Bye-bye.
All right, there he is. Darren Doogie Wolfson here.
Reckless speculation.
Yeah. I love also after the game, Anthony Edwards was saying, Pat Beverly told us whatever we did on the back-to-back in L.A. to just get smoked by the Clippers the next night. Don't do that. Just play video games until you fall asleep.
That was the
tonight.
best part. He then said, so I'm going to go home, which basically means they all hit the town. Yeah. That's my favorite part. He basically said, we're not supposed to do what we did after we beat the Lakers last Friday, and then insinuated we went out and had a great time.
But a couple things here. It's like, okay, you guys have houses in LA anyways in the off season, so you can go spend time in LA. On a back-to-back in which your season is, I'm not going to say it's on the line because it's early, but you got off to a really slow start and you need to get your asses going, right? And you're not doing everything you can on that back-to-back to get enough rest. And I just feel like the Wolves are a very unserious team for the most part. Cat talks a big game, but D'Lo throughout his entire career has been an unserious guy. Yeah. It's
Pat Bev is the one true professional, right? And he told him what you did last time was really dumb. I love the notion that these teams go on trips and that they turn into fun. Since when is a bleeping professional sports team road trips? Well, hey, it's like a field trip. Let's go out and have a lot of fun. You're exactly right. You can go back. The big story in football is Ron Rivera is going back to Carolina for the first time as Washington coach, and how is he going to spend all his time there? And he's like, it's a business trip. It's like Ron Rivera can go back to Carolina all he wants from the months of February basically through July.
Yes. Well, probably January through July, really. Yeah. Because
but don't you love this notion that, we're going on the road. It's going to be what?
I know, and
Put
but
golf
it's
clubs
different.
away.
Like if you're, if you're a perennial playoff team, or you've got, if you're Giannis, the Bucks are off to a slow start this year, and they're injured and stuff. If Giannis wants to go out for a couple extra hours on the road, sip some champagne, hang out with some buddies, go to the club, whatever. He won a championship 3 months ago. I think we can all live with that. But if you're a franchise that for 17 years has been trying to dig out from being this embarrassment, maybe go to bed at 9:30. Well, I know the game gets it. Maybe go to bed at like midnight and sleep for 9 hours and rent a hyperbaric chamber or something.
So what's up with the Cat shooting stat? Like, I find that to be really intriguing.
Well, it's he's like that. That efficiency is there every year. He's one of the most efficient offensive players in the NBA.
But when you're playing the Kings, like last night, I'm sure that you watched that game. Last night, that was a game, because the Kings aren't good. That was a game where I just thought, okay, Cat, end this game. Like, just basically put your mark on this game. And I'm not talking about the fourth quarter. I'm talking about the first half. Yeah. And he had 6 shots. He had 6 shots in each half.
How about this? This is nuts. So among guys who shoot the ball 15 times or more per game, so the guys like the heavy volume offensive players, because like Rudy Gobert is the most efficient offensive player, but he only shoots 7 times a game, and all of his shots are just dunks at the rim.
Sure.
So among guys who have a diverse offensive portfolio, shoot the ball 15 plus times per game, here are the rankings in order right now for effective field goal percentage. And just to over-explain this, and then we got to get into this Ryan Suter, Zach Parise story here in a second here too. But so effective field goal percentage adjusts for the fact that a 3-point field goal is worth more points, obviously, than a 2. So if you have a higher 3-point percentage, you are therefore a more efficient offensive player.
Okay.
Nikola Jokic is number 1 in effective field goal percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Durant is number 2. Karl-Anthony Towns is number 3. Steph Curry is number 4.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep going down here. Jaylen Brown, Zach LaVine.
The guy Phil Mackey wanted to keep over Andrew Wiggins.
And Giannis rounds out the list of guys who shoot the ball at least 15 times in a game.
Okay.
So, again, some of it is, why aren't his teammates in the last, especially that game against the Suns? Like,
agree completely on that.
And I don't care. I know that D'Lo can make shots too, but when you have a guy that's just nuclear hot and always efficient, you should be looking to feed him the ball schematically, or just if I get that Chris Finch's system is a little bit more of it's a structure, and you guys are supposed to sort of figure it out within the structure. But the other thing here too is let's not let Cat off the hook. I think back all the time to Kevin Garnett, growing up watching him in the 90s, early 2000s, and he is demanding the ball in certain situations, right? I mean, for him it was low block, post up, clap, give me the MF and ball, right? Like, that's not Cat's personality. But Cat needs to figure out a way in those moments to be a leader, and say, whether it's a timeout or whether it's like in the middle of a possession, hey, right here, like, ball goes through me, like.
Right.
And why isn't it acknowledged in those situations that he's the man, especially when he has 16 points? So it's just, I don't know if it's Finch, if it's Cat's teammates, if it's partially Cat, or it's probably just a combination of all three. They just need to be more aware of it, because that's an incredible list. It's literally like MVPs and Hall of Famers and Cat in terms of most efficient offensive players.
And the Suns game was maddening from the standpoint of he's hot, and D'Lo decides it's my game now, which is ridiculous. But last night, you're playing a bad team, and that's where Cat should have said, okay, I'm going to do this. This is not that hard. Instead, he's throwing fastball passes. He hit a fan with a pass last night.
He's throwing very hard passes.
I don't know who he thinks he is exactly, but he's throwing these, and they're like passes off of things that he could have easily just gone and gotten fouled or got a shot.
He had
last night on him more than coaching.
There was one play, I think it was like late in the second quarter or something, and so Cat's he's kind of up by the elbow. He's got his back to the basket, and he gets doubled. And Beasley or someone flashes under the hoop, and he just throws like a no-look missile bounce pass that just whizzes out of bounds.
Yes.
It's like, all right, dude.
Right.
So, I don't know. But that's a good win last night. The Kings are not a bad team. I think the Kings are probably going to fire, what's his name? Luke Luke Walton here at some point. But rack up some wins here against some teams that you should be beating in the next few games.
Tonight,